I think it was KBLA or KTBLA or something like that out in Los Angeles, I think. Dr. Melina Abdullah was interviewing me, and that's why I was a couple minutes late because of this interview. Did anybody hear the interview? Was anybody like around? Like I don't know. I don't know how many of you live in LA or not, but did anybody happen to hear that interview by chance? And the reason I asked that is because I invited them to come to class. And so now someone says my volume's low. Is my volume high enough? Can y'all hear me? Do I need to yell? Do I need to talk like this? Does that help? Let me know if you can hear me okay. Am I fine? Okay, thank you, Andre. Okay. So that's good. Okay, thank you, Stephen and April. Okay, so all right. So anyway, I was just really curious because I invited them to come to class and we were talking about economics, black economics, and a little bit of everything. I know one thing that was brought up was Dr. Abdul. In case you don't know, she ran for president or vice president with Cornell West. Cornell West was the presidential candidate. Dr. Melina Abdullah was the vice presidential candidate. We brought Dr. West and Dr. Abdullah to class. And I just have a lot of respect for them. I actually wrote their names into the ballot when I went to go vote because I just I vote for who I want to vote for. I don't let anybody tell me what to do. And so we were talking about just some of the stuff going on as far as like money and payments and individuals in the black community being paid for their influence to convince black people to vote for one party or another, and whether that was ethical. And that was an interesting conversation because on one hand, I don't think there's anything unethical about it in the sense that, or I'm gonna say not unethical. I'm gonna say because I do think it's unethical that money is involved in politics anyway. I think that our politics in America would be better. We'd have more democracy if it wasn't tainted by money. Because what eventually will happen is that when your democracy is so heavily influenced by money, then eventually the people that have money realize that money is more valuable than a vote, right? That money is the driver behind the whole process because money can buy votes. All I gotta do is run a bunch of advertisements and stuff like that, and I can find out what it is that you care about and say, okay, if you elect me, then I'll make sure that monkeys can marry bananas, and and then you vote for me because you think that the monkey banana issue is the really important issue. When really I'm just buying your vote so I can get a government contract and make more money, right? This is kind of how the game gets played. So the money shouldn't be in the politics. That's what I truly believe. I believe if money wasn't in politics, you could really elect the best people for the job. And unfortunately, America can't do that. But then also, once you have the money sort of in there, and you got these billions of dollars being shared by all these different people, I don't see anything wrong with everybody who helps getting some piece of that money. If you have a platform and whatever, and people want to advertise on your platform, then why not? Why shouldn't that be allowed? That's not an issue. I think that what made it a little bit corrupt, it was the lack of transparency in terms of like you should be sort of letting people know, like, hey, look, I'm doing this interview because this person is a proud sponsor of this channel. They broke me off a couple dollars, and this is what it is. And I think that that could still be okay. I think that that's where the issue came into play is that there are lots of people who truly believe that they can use money to not just get whatever outcomes they want, but they can use money to ultimately control the black community. And what becomes fundamentally problematic is that in financial theory, they have something called agency theory. Agency theory says that there are scenarios where you have an agent representing the principal. The agent is almost like if you have a real estate agent, they represent you. Or if you have a lawyer, your lawyer is your agent. They're supposed to represent your interests in court. So I want you to think about it like this. So imagine if you were in a legal battle and an insurance company was trying to figure out how to settle with you for the lowest amount possible, and they offer you $1 million, and you say no, that's not enough. I don't want. I think I should get more than that. So let's say that your insurance company says, "Dang, if we don't if we don't keep if we can't keep this from going to trial, it's going to cost us $10 million because this person, they were walking down the street." And a Coca-Cola truck just ran, ran over their body and whatever, right? And killed the dog, and we have no defense, right? So let's say, think about it like this. So imagine if the lawyer goes, or sorry, if the other side, the insurance company goes to your lawyer and they say, look, we know what we know what this case is. and he won't take the million. But if you can get him to take the million, we'll give you a million too, right? We know your legal fees will probably be, maybe your legal fees will be $800,000 according to the agreement. We'll give you 1.5 million if you can get him to take the $1 million deal. Do you understand? Give me a yes if you understand how that could be perceived as a type of corruption. How that would be corrupt, actually. That would be illegal. Right? Do you understand what's going on there? What's going on is that they realize, and this is something that happens all around the world, it's been happening all throughout history, is they realize that paying the principal is more expensive than paying the agent. The principal is you. You're the client. That's what the principal is. So paying you would mean that it goes to court and they got to give you $10 million because you're not budging. But if they can get your lawyer who you trust to convince you, hey, you got to take this $1 million deal. If you don't take the million, then we don't know what's going to happen, and I don't know if I can win this case, and blah blah. Do you see what I mean? So at the end of the day, they spend 2 million or whatever, 2.5 million instead of 10 million. And this actually happens. This isn't just what happens during elections, right? When they say, well, why would we, black people, they want reparations. We can't afford reparations. That's $14 trillion. So how about we just give Al Sharpton $500,000 to tell them that reparations is not that important, right? That would be much cheaper than really sort of doing the right thing on a broader scale, right? Or in Africa, in Africa, Nigeria, I think Nigeria has more oil than does Nigeria have more oil than every country on the planet? I don't know. I'm really curious about that because I've been talking about it, but I should. Okay, let me see here. I want to find out which countries have the most oil. I know Nigeria is up there. Nigeria is like just booming with oil. There's an insane amount of oil. Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Canada, Iraq. Okay, so Nigeria is not even in the top five. Okay, all right. I thought Nigeria was in the top five. So let's see. So, but we know Nigeria is up there, right? Nigeria has an insane amount of oil. They should be very, very wealthy. They're not even in the top 10. Wait, wow. Okay, well, forgive me. Ain't I boo-boo the fool right now? Let's find out where Nigeria ranks. Nigeria is number 11. Okay, so I saw the top 10. Nigeria is like right there on the edge. So they have 36.89 billion barrels of oil reserves. And let's see here. Let's see. How much is that worth? I'd be curious to know how much 36.89 billion barrels of oil, proven oil reserves is worth. Let's see here. Based on the market price of oil at $73 a barrel, that's worth about $2.7 trillion. Did y'all know that? Did y'all know Nigeria has $2.7 trillion in proven oil reserves? That doesn't include the unproven oil reserves or the questionable oil reserves. That's the proven oil. But here's the thing. If you go to Nigeria, I went there in 2009. The whole time I felt very uncomfortable. I felt very awkward. I felt very guilty because when I was in Nigeria, because I guess there are people that think that I'm an important person, which is completely incorrect. They were giving me kind of the royal treatment. I was driven around by guys in black SUVs with guns and stuff, and black suits and sunglasses and earpieces, and their job was to keep us safe. And the whole time I'm looking out the window and I'm seeing nothing but just an insane amount of poverty everywhere. It was heartbreaking. I mean, the amount of poverty I saw, and I'm part Nigerian too, by the way. I saw somebody said they're Nigerian. Yeah, I'm actually 33% Nigerian. I'm very proud of that, by the way. Um, I'm claiming Igbo, in case you're wondering. But anyway, it's kind of it was sad to me, and I said, how can a country with all this oil have so much poverty? That's just very weird to me. And what I then connected it to is that if you look at Nigeria's history, there's been sort of this very interesting thing where, and I don't know all the details of it, but these European countries say, "Oh, you got all this oil. We want to come and drill this oil and make a ton of money from this oil that you have." But they say, "Well, gosh, if we were to take care of all the people who own this land and all the people that are, that live in Nigeria, that's a pretty big bill. That's a big expense." So what we do is we just pay the leader. We pay one guy or one group of people, make them very, very rich, and that way we don't have to pay everyone else. And this is something that's done all around the world. It is, again, another type of corruption. They did this actually back, I want to say 2012, NBC Universal was doing a major like $50 billion merger or something, and I think the NAACP or somebody brought up a racial disparity issue that there were no African American channels and black people weren't being represented in the deal and da da da. So what they did was they said, well, rather than us doing the hard work of spending $1 billion to make sure black people are included, we'll just go pay Al Sharpton so he can give us a give us a Negro license to say, okay, we have a clean racial bill of health. Or if you remember Donald Sterling, the owner of the Clippers, remember the guy who really seemed to have a real issue with black people, he'd actually gotten an award from the NAACP. And so what this says to me, and this was just on my mind today because I was talking to Dr. Abdul on the radio, is that this really says that in a community like ours, where you're kind of dealing with this duality of oppression with sort of this economic desperation, you really can't really trust your leaders that much. Or if you do trust them, you have to pick those leaders. You can't necessarily pick leaders who are in a position of financial desperation because, they'll sell out for a bag of potato chips. They would, because they need money, right? Whereas if you have people that are financially secure, that are sustained and supported by the community at a very high level, then the odds of corruption kind of drops, right? Like, so for example, if I tried to go to the Anti-Defamation League that represents the Jewish community. If I went to them and said, "Hey, I want you to sell out the Jewish community, and I'm gonna send you a check for $10,000 right now if you're willing to go and say some things that I know that the community would not agree with," they would probably laugh in my face, right? So ultimately, financial security is very important because that changes the way individuals carry themselves. It changes how we make decisions. A lot of times, some people believe that everyone has a price. That's not true. Some people get to the point where they don't have a price. But the thing is, if you are financially desperate, this is why financial security is important to give to your children. When they're in a place of financial security, they're not gonna be necessarily motivated by the money, right? So you have to teach them. You have to really teach your kids two things. One, how to have enough money, but then two, to know what enough looks like. See, in a capitalist society, there is no such thing as the word enough. You always want to make more. But if you made 1 billion, you want 1.2. If you make 1.2, you want 1.5. That's why capitalism is not a healthy endeavor because capitalism feeds into endless amounts of greed. And that's a very unhealthy place to be because you're in this constant purgatory of constantly feeling like you need more, you don't have enough, right? So they have to know what enough actually looks like and they have to know how to get enough. So they're not operating with a deficiency. Whenever you operate with a deficiency, then you're not balanced. A person that's off balance can't really lead at the highest level. This is another reason why, for example, I don't believe that a pastor of a church should be some 29-year-old unmarried guy who's never ever succeeded at anything who also needs money. Because the depth of the temptation for that man is going to be off the charts. Why? Well, because he's never accomplished nothing, so he doesn't know what it feels like to have power. So he's going to be drunk with power. He's never had a girlfriend, so now all the ladies in the front row of the church are giving him googly eyes. So he's excited about that. So next thing you know, he becomes one of these shenanigan pastors, up in here getting into all kinds of nonsense, right? He's never made any money before, so when he sees $100,000 coming into the church every week, he's rubbing his hands like Birdman because now he can go finally buy that Cadillac Escalade that he's always wanted, right? So when you have the pastor though, who's already seen that, he's had the women, he's had the power, he's had the money, and now he's risen to a higher purpose. Now his consciousness is on a higher level, assuming that he's been nurturing his soul in the right way, right? Assuming that he's developed properly, right? Because you got some grown men that are still little boys, right? And that's not going to work. But assuming that he spent many years learning how to be a grown man, at that point, that man can make decisions in a more balanced sort of way, in a way that actually makes sense, as opposed to somebody who's operating with all these deficiencies, right? So I think deficiencies actually feed into temptations, right? This is how people get misled. This is how people get manipulated. A lot of times, if they can get you operating on the fear frequency or the greed frequency, or tap into a void or something that's missing, that's how they can manipulate you. In fact, if you want to understand this, let's go back to the ancient old art of pimping. If you look at the way pimps operate, pimps tend to seek out smell, and exploit individuals that are operating on some type of deficiency. The pimp does not go chase after the woman who's got high self-esteem, who's financially secure, who's read all the books, who has plenty of support. He goes after the woman who's struggling. He goes the one who's hooked on drugs, the one with low self-esteem, the one who doesn't have love from her daddy, right? Because he's like, oh, he operates as the devil does. The devil comes in and the devil sees the details. The devil sees the areas where you have something missing, and the devil comes in and fills those voids for you. So you got to make sure with your kids, you want to really. This is one of the reasons why I become very what's the word, almost offended and sad that so many of our children are just we screw up so many of our kids. I really believe that. I think that because we don't fix ourselves, we disrupt and screw up our children. And when we screw up our children, it's kind of sad because they then end up not being able to really truly pursue their purpose in life because you just left them with all these bullet holes in their bodies, in their soul. They got holes in their soul, all these voids, and they're just kind of being slapped around by society because they don't even know who they are. They don't know what they want. They don't know up from down, right from wrong. They're just chasing after whatever situation will give them a bigger paycheck. You see what I mean? Like just that part about financial desperation. A financially desperate person is gonna literally their 90% of their life is gonna be spent trying to be in situations where they can get the most money. So why not give them financial security so they can then start operating on the next level, whatever that means. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on. Okay, by the way, I wanted you guys to remember two things. One, later on today at noon, we're doing Stock Market Tuesdays. You guys know about this. I sent you all a link to join the stock market investing program if you wanted to join. I sent the discount 76% off or something like that. So feel free to join us this afternoon if you have stock market questions. You want to talk about the market. That's all we do the entire hour. Number two, I sent you all a list of stocks that cryptos, a list of my favorite cryptos. And actually, I'm going to try to grab that list right now and I'll put it in the chat so you guys can grab it if you missed it. I texted out. If you're not on the text list, make sure you are. Text the word morning to the number 87948. So if you text morning to 87948, then you would receive it. So I'm going to put the list in the chat right now. Somebody inevitably is going to say, I did not see the list. I don't see it. So if someone says, I don't see it, but you saw it, if you could grab it for them and say, here you go, here's the list, I'd appreciate that very much. Let me know if you see that list in the chat. I'm putting it inside the Zoom. So let me pop it in here real quick. And don't forget, if you want to just get notified via text the word morning to the number 87948. If you text morning to 87948, I'll send you a notification when we meet for class every day. Okay, so let's talk for a second about credit scores, okay? Let's see. I've been talking for what a good. Believe it or not, that was the plan from the beginning. I was actually planning to talk about credit scores, but because that's what I do in financial consciousness class, and I let myself have this stream of consciousness, and I think I have ADHD. I sometimes will talk about something completely different for 20 minutes, but it's always about money. But it's just whatever happens, whatever comes into my brain. So that's how I operate. So just I would apologize, but I'm going to keep on doing it. So there's no point in apologizing for something that's going to happen again. And so let's talk about credit scores real quick. That was on my mind, and I wanted to give you guys some quick stats about credit scores that you may or may not know, and also in terms of Black people in debt. So if you've ever wondered about credit scores, and I think I was thinking about credit scores because I met a guy, a friend of mine that I hadn't seen for a while named John Hope Bryant. I saw him at an event down in Norfolk, Virginia. He's very nice. It's nice to see him again. And he invited me to his event, an Operation Hope event. I think it's a Hope Global Forum or something like that. He's doing in Atlanta. So I told him I would love to join him and check out what he's doing because I just respect the guy a lot. And anyway, he talks a lot about credit scores. And one thing about credit scores that's really important is that credit scores can give you, they can open the door for a lot of economic possibilities that might not have existed before. And in fact, actually, there was something I shared on my Twitter today, or maybe I put it on my Instagram. Let me see if it's on my Instagram. I want to show you this, and why it just pissed me off. It made me. I'm gonna be honest. It made me really angry when I read this, because this is when you talk to me about white privilege. This is the kind of stuff I think about. So let me show you all this. This is on my Instagram. My Instagram is Dr. Boyce Finance, and I have a backup at Dr. Boyce Money. For when they not if for when they take down whatever account I have. They've been messing with me for years, but it's okay. We're gonna keep going. All right. So here, check this out. It says, this is a quote from some guy named Neil Chugley. I don't know who that is. He says, I just met a guy who did YC in 2021. YC is the Y Combinator. That's where a lot of businesses, mostly white, get a lot of funding, a lot of guidance, support, and networks that allow them to build these massive companies. A lot of them are worth multiple billions of dollars now. And so check this out. Let's look at what he says here. He says he raised $8 million in a seed round for his business. No business yet. Ain't sold a product. Ain't made a nickel. Ain't made like no proof of concept. Just an idea. He got $8 million in the seed round. Shipped nothing for 18 months. Like got nothing done. Burned through 7.9 million on a San Francisco office space and team offsites. Pivoted to AI, raised another 12 million in a Series A, still hasn't launched a product, started wearing a leather jacket, just gave a talk about founder resilience, and then he says SF is so effing back. Okay, so did y'all see that? Let me know if you saw that on the screen. Were y'all able to see that? So this dude is literally saying that this guy raised $20 million and did nothing. 20, he was probably 24 years old or something, maybe 28 or something, right? And this kind of stuff pisses me off. And the reason it pisses me off is this. How many of you, let me ask y'all this question, because I don't want to get all elevated right now. How many of y'all know a black business owner who's got a good business with a good product who could literally take just 10% of that money and turn that into an amazing business and create tons of jobs for other people? How many of you know at least one black business owner where if you call them up right now and said, "Hey, I got $1 million in funding for you," not 20 million, 1 million, would literally be able to take that money and build generational wealth for the next 5 generations with that because they already got a business that's working that they built with their bare hands with two nickels in their pocket. We all do. I know hundreds of people like this. I yesterday, no lie, I met with two students yesterday. One of them told me, well, and both of them were regular black people. They were not born with a silver spoon in their mouth. They just work hard, save, and they're responsible. One of them told me that she's made over 140,000 in the last month from her crypto and other investments. The other one told me that he makes $5,000 a week selling stock options and wants to get to $10,000 a week. And that doesn't count all the other people I've met. I talked to another young lady, Juiced Up Reese. She runs a juicing company that makes hundreds of thousands of dollars, making the absolute best juice you've ever seen in your life. And I've seen her have to work like hell to raise just 30 or 40 or $50,000. So, so when I ask you, do you understand why quotes like that really piss me off? Like, do you understand why seeing that this kid, whoever he was, ran through 20 million and nobody says anything, nobody, he's not being charged with a crime. Nobody, like it's just like, oh yeah, yeah, he's just having fun. Now he's giving TED Talks on entrepreneurial resilience, which is, that's mighty white of you. I mean and the reason I say that is because it's and the thing is, the crazy part is we'll look at people like that as experts. Like we'll literally like those people will be on big stages and giving these important presentations and raising even more money with unproven ideas because they've got so much money. They got money to burn. Whereas you have thousands of black owned businesses where the owners are literally making $1 out of 15 cents and actually getting it done with nothing, absolutely nothing. So if you want to know where my head is at when you talk about things like reparations, start there. I want to be able to write a $250,000 check for every single black-owned business that has already become profitable. That should be the baseline. Not even a quarter million, really $1 million. Like literally, there are so many black-owned businesses where the owners are already doing well, they're already profitable, they created two or three jobs, they would have created 30 or 40 if they had the money. They can't get the money. They go to Bank of America, they can't get the money. They go to all these other banks with these diversity statements, they can't get the money. But then you look over in Silicon Valley and somebody's getting $20 million to do nothing. This is when I think about reparations, this is part of what I think about. This when I think about racism, well, that I don't know if you call it racism, but it's definitely a racial disparity. It's not fair, right? But then again, I'm not here to sit around and whine about life not being fair. I know life's not fair. And I think the sooner we understand that, the better off we are. But don't come talking to me about symbolism and silly stuff. Talk to me about allowing people to be able that want to do the heavy lifting to build a community, having the ability to go get 50 million, $100 million in capital to go get the job done. We've got smart people in our community. We've got some of the most brilliant people in our community. If I raised $100 million right now, if we were able to get $100 million to start a black-owned school system, I got hundreds of black educators on speed dial that would rush to apply for a job. Every time we are able to create even one position in the black business school, and I send out an email to the hundreds of thousands of you that are connected to us, and I say, hey, we got this job, y'all. Do y'all understand that we get 150 applications within 24 hours? That's why I know our team is elite because it's a big number of people that apply. So imagine if we were able to go get in 50 million, $100 million to go get our job done. We're already doing the damn job at an epic level with no support at all. Well, why is that? Because Dr. Boyce don't want to vote Democrat. He don't want to do what he's told. He's telling people to vote for who supports them the most. Or Dr. Boyce telling black people to do what's best for themselves. So he's radical. He's crazy. What is radical about me? I have a freaking PhD and I taught at Syracuse University. You never did that. You don't know what it feels like to be the only African American on the entire planet to get a doctorate in finance. So why in the hell are you judging me? Just shut up and write the damn check and listen to the millions of people that we've been able to help in this particular platform. We built this stuff with nothing. Nothing. So when I see some little green-eyed white boy get 20 million because he has a cute idea, that kind of bothers me. That's it doesn't make me mad in the sense that I expect them to do anything for us. Like we got this. We're gonna get it done regardless. But it's like, don't come up here and act like you my friend when you're not helping us solve the most critical problems that we have. Or when you see black-owned institutions that are getting the job done, the job you failed to do, the job you're refusing to do. And you won't even give them a nickel because you think the Nation of Islam is too radical. You don't like something Farrakhan said. So rather than giving the Muhammad University of Islam, which is educating kids better than any damn school in Chicago, rather than giving them the $100 million they need to expand, you want to sit back and say, well, he didn't. He's not. We can't control those Negroes, so we're going to give the money to the teachers union. We're gonna give it to the Democrats so they can educate black children. So what you're telling me is you're not really educating them. You're just investing in your indoctrination process. That's what you're doing. You're investing in indoctrination. That's what you're doing. Because what the hell does his politics? Why the hell? What does Farrakhan's politics have to do with the fact that he's able in the Muhammad University of Islam to bring in black children and have them at the level of college students by the age of 12? Or you go across to Freedom Home Academy International, run by Marcus Klein, who has 8-year-olds who are able to understand concepts that a lot of college students don't understand. Why aren't you writing him $100 million checks? Why aren't you saying, oh my God, that's brilliant, that's amazing. I can't believe you did so much with so little. Here, let us shower money on you. No, what you do is you go to the worst school in the city where none of the kids can read, none of the kids can write, nobody has a future, and you say, well, let's pour money into the solution that isn't actually a solution. That's when the reality kicks in. That's when you realize that, well, it's not a solution for black people, but it's certainly a solution for the people that want to control and oppress black people. It's a perfect solution for them. It's like if I'm trying to build the best rabbit cage possible, and someone mistakenly believes that my goal is to free the rabbits, And every time I build a cage, it keeps the rabbits more constrained than they were before. And someone says, well, that's not a good solution. I'm gonna, really, I'm thinking, no, actually, it's the perfect solution because I never wanted to let the rabbits out in the first place. But I became friends with the rabbits and got them to commit to their incarceration by convincing them that I'm actually their friend. Because I'm the one who shows up and puts food in the bars to feed them, but I'm not letting these rabbits out of the cage. So they have a cage for you. They built that cage. And they will always fund the cage because that which we think is a failed solution actually is the perfect solution for the people who really don't want you to ever have a solution that benefits you. But it's the perfect solution if your goal is to control and manage black people. You keep them ignorant, blind, deaf, dumb, and stupid. That's the goal. Anyway, I didn't mean to start yelling like that. I process it, and it's not even about me, right? I'm not talking about like, oh, you should be supporting the black business. I don't that whatever, man. We'll figure that out. But there's so many black entrepreneurs out here that are putting in the work, that have amazing ideas, that could use that money. And the fact that you've got these white kids in San Francisco that are able to burn through $100 million and not even think twice about it, that should make people furious. That should let them know that they're not serious. You can't be serious if you're doing something that dramatically stupid. You have to support black-owned businesses and black-owned institutions if black people are ever going to elevate in this society. We will not elevate under the thumb of somebody else's oppression. You will not elevate if you have 90% of your people looking for jobs working for a white man. That is not going to work. That the math ain't mathing. The math does not math. You must have institutional building, starting with the family. We can even talk about the church because the church, when it's functioning properly, does a lot of great things for the community. You can go into black-owned businesses for sure, and you need black-owned schools with black educators who are going to love the kids and protect them instead of giving them away to systems that either fail them or prepare them for a lifetime of slavery, student loan debt, and everything else. Anyway, let me refocus, man. Now I know I must be riled up because I'm actually sweating. Forgive me for that. And I shouldn't be sweating like this because I still got the remnants of that cold, I guess. I'm coughing a little bit, so forgive me for that. All right, so let me lay out a couple of quick thoughts for you. Um, Here are a few things about, let's go back to credit scores. I know that was what I planned to talk about before. And I want to actually make sure I finish that so I can actually say that I finished the job. So if you want to talk about raising capital for your life, for your business, whatever it is you're trying to do, the first thing to understand about debt is you got to make sure you know the difference between good debt and bad debt. Debt is not a good thing. Debt is not a bad thing. Debt is just a powerful thing. Bad debt is debt that you take on for purposes that don't make you any money. So if you take on a bunch of debt to buy a car, that's bad debt. Good debt is debt you take on that helps you make more money. So if you take on debt to buy a house, start a business, that would be considered good debt. There's risk, but that's good debt. So a few things about debt is connected to credit scores, and this is one of the reasons why I have so much respect for John Hope Bryant is because he talks a lot about credit scores. And if you want to know the breakdown of a credit score, it's pretty simple. About 35% of your credit score is connected to payment history. Are you making your payments on time? That's the most important factor. Number two is credit utilization. If you're using too much of your credit, that's going to reduce your score. If you paid some stuff off and you have a high capacity, then your score naturally goes up. How long you've had credit, that's about 15% of the credit score. And then you have inquiries, what that can reduce your score. So if you're going around applying for credit constantly, that's naturally going to reduce your score. So what experts recommend is that you regularly check your credit reports, you make your payments on time, you think carefully about your utilization as well as your inquiries, right? Don't go applying for stuff unless you really need it, and a few other things. Now, here are a few other facts that you should know about credit scores. Number one, your income doesn't matter. They don't care how much money you make, which is actually quite illogical in my opinion, because I think income does matter when it comes to paying back debts. But for whatever reason, whoever designed credit scores doesn't include income. I don't think that's logical, to be honest with you. If you close a credit card, that actually can hurt your credit score because what it does is it reduces your credit capacity, which can increase your utilization rate. So you want to sort of think about that if you are trying to adjust your credit. One thing I can tell you too, and I thought about this actually last night. I was actually dreaming about this. So I was literally speaking to a group of people about this. I have no idea why I had this dream. It's so weird. But uh, I knew someone who actually. Babe, I cannot read that. Oh, run. Okay, got it. Okay. All right, babe. I'll see you in a little bit. Um, I knew someone who took advantage of the Fair Credit Reporting Act, and he basically went through his credit report. He disputed everything that he saw. I'm not telling you to do this, but this is what he did. He just looked at every single debt. He disputed every single debt. And the Fair Credit Reporting Act basically says that they have a certain amount of time that they have to respond to you. If they don't respond within that time, the debt gets removed from the credit report. He improved his credit score a lot just by disputing a lot of his debts, especially the older ones, because the company didn't validate the debt. So that's a little hack that he used. I'm not telling you what to do with this, but this is something that he did. Of course, you should have reason to believe that maybe the debt's not legitimate, or maybe you're confirming that it's legitimate. It's up to you. A couple of things about credit scores. If you want to know some stats in terms of average credit scores, the average credit score in the U.S., according to FICO, is 715, which is like, that surprised me. I didn't know it was that high. 23% of Americans have exceptional credit, which is 800 or above, which is like, wow. Also, credit scores tend to go up with age, which is to be expected. Now, here is the story on African Americans, in case you're wondering. As expected, our credit scores are a little lower than the average. We're about 677, which is lower than the national average. Majority black communities, 46% of residents have subprime credit scores compared to 22% in majority white communities. Also, black college graduates, even those of us who are educated, we have an average of $25,000 more in student loan debt than white people do. And student loans actually are seen as one of the big variables in terms of ruining black wealth. Actually, half of all black college graduates default on their student loans. So that means half of all black college graduates are almost completely nullified as wealth builders because the first step toward becoming a wealth builder is getting out of debt. So a lot of black people that work really hard and went to school and everything die with a negative net worth. So that's if we solve that problem, then we solve a lot of the black wealth problem. Also, in addition to that, black bachelor's degree holders owe an average of $52,726 in student loans, which is nearly double that of white folks. So, what's interesting about the student loan thing that I want to kind of hit real quick is that student loans are kind of a double whammy. It's a little bit of a paradox, right? Because what's happened is that for many of us, we were raised to expect and to hope that we could have a better life than our parents did. And and when I grew up, the number one way to have a better life was go to college so you can get a good job. So we're committed to this idea of going to college and getting a good job. So what capitalism does is the bankers and the government all show up and say, we want to help you to achieve that goal because we love you so much. We want to help you to have this opportunity to improve your life and all these other things, right? So they say, so we'll loan you money. We'll give you access to capital, not to start a business, but we'll give you access to capital to go to college, right? We won't give you $20,000 to start a business, but we'll give you $200,000 to go to one of our universities because when we give money to you, we're kind of paying ourselves anyway, right? Because you're going to take that money and all you got to do is go, give it right to the university. So, we're all making money together in this process. So then what happens is because the debt is so readily available, universities start boosting the price of college, right? They say, well, there's an infinite supply of money, so natural inflation is going to occur. And if you look at the history of the cost of going to college over the last 30 years, it has gone up faster than the rate of inflation. Well, why is that? Well, because there's a ton of money available. Whenever you flood money onto a certain space or into a certain industry, what happens is that you have more dollar bills chasing a limited supply of a certain commodity. When that happens, you get natural inflation. Inflation is just gonna happen. Just like the pandemic. The reason we have so much inflation after the pandemic is because they flooded the economy with money. When you flood something with money, everything's going to cost more because everybody's paid, everybody's rich. You understand? Does that make sense? Let me know if you follow this. So the cost of college is going up. We're going deeper and deeper in debt to get this degree. Um, but the plan is a little flawed because the degree gives you access to a job, but then you're a little disappointed because maybe the job doesn't pay you as much as you thought it was going to pay, or you don't feel it doesn't give you enough money to pay off the debt that you borrowed to get this degree. And then on top of that, this gripping sensation that guys might feel on their testicles or whatever is basically the fact that you are stuck on the corporate plantation and they pretty much have you locked in, right? For two reasons. One, because now you're in slavery to the debt. You have to pay the debt. But then number two, throughout the process, you were focused on this one path to success that was given to you when you were a child, which says that college and job is the way to be successful when that wasn't the optimal path. That's not the path that's taken by people who become wealth builders. That's not the typical path, right? But again, I come along. I've looked at the data, so we study like, okay, these people are millionaires. These people are not. Which path did they take to get here? So effectively, all that needs to happen is this: you can do what you want with this information, but and tweak it to however you want. But the problem with that process is that that the thing that you thought was actually helping you was actually hurting you. The ready availability of debt to pay for an overpriced college education is something where you lost balance, right? Like a certain amount of debt, like taking out a $10,000 loan to get a 4-year degree makes perfect sense. Maybe even a $20,000 loan. But when it becomes like a $250,000 loan or $100,000 loan or a $90,000 loan, you're violating one of the simple fundamental rules of business, which is that you should not take on too much debt in order to go out and try to generate this revenue. Because if the revenue is not high enough to pay off the debt, then you're going to go bankrupt. Any business that says, hey, we got this opportunity to make $1 million a year, so I'm going to go borrow $1 billion so I can make $1 million a year, that's going to be a failed business. Does that make sense? However, if you take the same opportunity, let's say I know I'm going to make $1 million a year, but I can borrow $2 million to make $1 million a year. Well, that turns a bad business deal into an amazing business deal. So the point I'm making here is that going to college is not really the problem. It's the cost of everything. And it was the way the whole process was kind of structured for you. Two things. One, you're paying too much to go to college. You're taking on too much debt. Number two, they never helped you understand something that I hope you'll remember when you walk out of here, which is that you're not white. You are not white. And people just get so shocked when I say that. They're like, of course I know I'm not white. Well, if you know you're not white, then why do you expect to get the same treatment as white people in a white economy? I mean, it doesn't mean like you don't have to hate white people to say this. Every study known to man shows that black people don't get treated the same. That a white boy and a black man can apply for the same job with the same credentials. The white boy has a far higher likelihood of getting that job. And then if they both do get the job, then the white boy is going to get more promotions and raises because that's his environment. That's his natural element, right? It's like a fish and a giraffe both go to college together. And so they both, after college, they both go jump in the sea. And everybody wonders why the giraffe is drowning and the fish is doing just fine. Well, because the giraffe is in the wrong element. He shouldn't be in the water because giraffes ain't supposed, you're not a fish, dude. Stop it. Right? So instead of asking a giraffe to swim, maybe we should create another type of ecosystem that benefits the giraffe. You understand? So systematic racism, the best solution to systematic racism is to gain the ability to form alternative systems. And that's really the crux of how we teach children in the Black Business School. We have that whole model, the Sturdy model. A lot of you saw that when we did the training on how to turn your child into a millionaire. Sturdy stands for Systems, Technology, Entrepreneurship, Relationships, and Delegation for the Youth. That means basically if you teach kids early, if you supplement their education, which goes back to our core idea that Black people should be educating our own kids. I don't want nobody else educating Black kids. Other people, we can learn from everybody, right? I'm not saying they shouldn't go to school and stuff. I'm saying I think that we understand our plight better than anyone else. We are experts at being Black. That's important for them to understand when they go try to navigate the world as a black man or a black woman. So if you simply supplement the education of the child, if you say, look, son, um, I want you to go to college. We're gonna go to Notre Dame. You're gonna make straight A's. You're gonna go work in corporate America. You're gonna go kill it. Nothing is wrong with that. But you got to make sure you supplement their education by starting off by saying, don't you do know you're black though, right? And you do know that being black means you're going to have a special set of skills because a giraffe is not a goldfish. So that means that because the world did not create systems and spaces and habitats for you to be able to truly flourish, you might have to help to create some of that. You might need to help build some of that, right? And what does that mean? Well, if you take a kid and he's gonna make straight A's and go to college and all that, but he also knows the basic three things, three tools of wealth building. One, how to start a business. Number two, how to make an investment. And then number three, how to own the difference between owning something and renting something, meaning buying real estate, stuff like that. Then he's able to supplement, almost like add on this extra piece to his wealth building process that therefore expands all of his possibilities and opportunities, right? So he's gone to college, he's got some student loan debt, he gets his first job. Maybe he likes it, maybe he doesn't, but it doesn't matter because he's got another plan. He's going to the next level. He gets with his friends and he says, okay, my parents have been investing for me since I was a kid, so I have $250,000 in stock over here. So I don't go to work because I have to. I go to work because I want to, and I'm going to take 10,000 out of that 250,000, and I'm about to get with JoJo and Rerun and Leroy, and we're about to go start this business over here because that's going to give us more opportunities. But in the meantime, we're also buying stock and buying real estate. So we got this whole range of options that allows us to not be constrained by whatever you put in front of us, right? I don't have to eat the unhealthy meal that you put in front of me because I've got a whole smorgasbord that was laid out for me by my ancestors. Right? I got a whole community that has my back. I got family that loves me. I have a community that planned for me. They prepared me for this moment, and they didn't just leave me hanging. They didn't leave me. They're not telling me to go get it out the mud. They're not leaving me out here in the dirt. They're not stranding me in a hostile environment with no resources because that's what we do. Dr. Claude Anderson says it all the time in his book Powernomics. Powernomics.com is his website. Everybody should support this man. Christmas is coming. I hope you'll go to powernomics.com and buy extra copies of the books and give them away to kids in the neighborhood and stuff because everybody needs to read it. But he literally says that it is not only inappropriate for black people to um, put our kids in a hostile economic environment with no resources. He said that's actually child abuse. It's child abuse because you're sending your child out into the world with nothing and expecting them to beg people who don't like that child at all. And and literally they have to beg them for to get what they need. I mean, think about it. You literally are hurt in multiple ways. Like you are in such a disadvantage. You're in hostile territory. You ain't got no resources. You don't have any skill on how to create alternative possibilities for yourself. And then you're black on top of that. It's like you're really set up to lose. So when so many of our young people are losing, I think that we have to acknowledge that perhaps they lose because we create a losing culture. I mean, you can think of success and wealth almost like a flower. I told you all how in finance, a lot of the equations we use to measure wealth and how wealth grows come out of biology. So literally, wealth grows the same way a tree grows, or a human being, or a pig, or whatever, right? The same equations that we use for biology can be used in financial mathematics. If you know anything about how plants grow and how animals grow, environment is everything. If I want to grow a rose or a carrot and I'm in the desert and I don't water the plant, then that's not going to grow. It doesn't matter what kind of seed you plant, they're not going to grow. So you have to create the environment that creates the outcomes that you're looking for. And so by preparing children in a specific way, you get them prepared for success. So success becomes a symptom of what you of all the preparation that you did in advance. And this is usually something that requires consciousness because you got to be thinking about this stuff 10, 20 years before it happens. You can't sort of wait until it occurs and then use I don't know, maybe we use victimhood as sort of our default response. Like, oh, look, they done did it to us again. Look at what white folks. To me, it's like, well, how many times does that have to happen to us before we realize that we don't have any friends? I know that it's hard, it's a hard reality to acknowledge, and maybe it hurts our feelings, but once you kind of realize that the world's not fair and you're okay with that, or you just accept that, then you start to form solutions that actually benefit you. And I'm all for solutions. I don't really identify with us just feeling sorry for ourselves or letting the same thing happen over and over again every generation because there's no reason for that. So I hope that that makes sense. I know I said a lot, and if I offended anybody, I apologize, but there's no point in apologizing because I'm not going to change. So anyway, that's it. I'm going to let you guys go for today. I hope that this conversation was beneficial to you. It gives you something to think about. If you want to see that training, how to turn your child into a millionaire, you can go to kiddyboss.com, KIDDIE, kiddyboss.com. And also, of course, at boycewatkins.com, there's a lot of stuff there, like my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power and stuff like that. So feel free to go to boycewatkins.com. Later on this afternoon, we'll be doing stock market investing at noon. I'm going to go actually check on some stuff, and I'll be back in a little bit for that. So if you want to join, I'll send you guys a link if you want to. I'll text it out. So make sure you're on the text list. Text the word morning to the number 87948. So text morning to 87948, and I will send you guys a link if you guys want to join us for stock market investing. So have a good day, everybody. I will see you all tomorrow. Take care.